Sorry, it's right. My bad. Sorry. Good evening, everyone. It's 7 p.m. on May 11th, 2023, and I would like to welcome everyone in the room and those participating online as I call to order this meeting of the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Board of Education for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. We value everyone's input and have made sure to dedicate a portion of this meeting to hear from you. We look forward to your comments during that time, as indicated on our agenda. Mr. Lyman, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Mrs. Dorn?
Here.
Mr. Kinsey?
Present.
Mr. Price? Here. Mrs. Anderson?
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Will you please stand if you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Lyman, will you please give the treasurer's report?
Could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the April 13th and the April 27th board meetings?
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Dorn, Mrs. Anderson? Questions or corrections? Mr. Lyman, please call the roll on approval of the minutes from April 13th and April 27th.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Could I get a motion to approve the treasurer's report for the month of April?
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Dorn and Mr. Carpenter?
Don't really have a lot to say about the monthly treasurer's report. We're looking good, we're looking solid financially, and all the reports are included with your agenda. The monthly reports also are on the district webpage, and we have the pie chart showing where we spend money, where we receive money, and we are looking good as our salaries and benefits reflect our budget, and also how our property taxes and state funding compared to what we budgeted for revenues. Does anyone have any questions about anything in that report?
Mr. Lyman, please call the roll.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price? Yes. Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to approve the 5-year forecast revision as presented with the agenda, and then we'll have discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Carpenter, Mrs. Dorn?
Okay. We will have the 5-year forecast. There we go. So the forecast is projected. You also have hard copies, I believe, with your agenda. Just want to note some things here. The 5-year forecast is required by the Ohio Department of Education. The original forecast is done in November. The revision is done now in May. Those are required. This is a general fund only, so it doesn't include any student activities or lunchroom or federal and state grants in these figures. This document is also on the website, I might add. The columns on the left are 3 years of actual history in each one of those areas, and then on the right are 5 years forecasted out. The description of each one of the items is confusing on this form that the state requires. So on the website, I have definitions of what's included in each one of those line items. The first one, for instance, is actually real estate property tax. In a district such as ours, with higher than average property values, you automatically have higher real estate tax revenues as compared to state funding. And we do have that. I'm predicting in a conservative manner, just a 1% increase each year for real estate revenues, except during the 6-year reappraisal, which is next year, where usually there's a bump because that's when each one of the homes are reappraised by a firm employed by the Greene County Auditor's Office. So, real estate revenue for state revenue, we're projecting a freeze all the way out because we are on what the state calls guarantee, and that means we're not funded by how many children we have or what our ADM is in the district. We're funded by how the state calculates what our flat floor needs to be. Because as property values go up, the state will cut your funding, and to keep a district like ours from getting nothing from the state, they flatten it out. So really can't count on much of an increase in 5 years at all from the state.
So you're saying we get the bare minimum that they could possibly give us? Because
Right,
basically
I
what you're
mean-
saying. Yeah.
Not literally, but
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Then under expenditures, for personal services, that's the employee salaries. We have 270 some employees. I don't have the exact number, but I went back to my desk. There's a large jump in the salary projection for fiscal year 2025 because that's when all of our ESSER grants, our COVID grants expire. We are able to pay quite a few salaries out of those grants now. The general fund will be picking those all up in 2025. That's what we call the ESSER grant cliff. We kind of fall off there. I projected, just to give you an idea on some of these items, since I have to do something with salaries, I just put 2% on the base, 6% increase to retirement benefits because of the cost of insurance, mainly medical insurance, fleet and building insurance. I think I was counting the other day, there are 9 different kinds of insurances that a district like this has. If you count workers' comp and unemployment as insurances, which they really are. I added 10% to purchase services because there are quite a few items there that are jumping at a rapid rate, and I want to make sure with inflation that I'm conservative there. And then the other thing that does not reflect on this forecast, the levy that we passed last year was a 7-year levy, and that will expire in 2029. We will get, in fiscal year 29, we will get half the collection from that levy because school funding is on a fiscal year, July 1st to June 30th, and the county auditor's office does real estate taxes on the calendar year, January to December. I guess the bottom line, 2 things I wanted to say from the bottom line. Line 6.01, if you can see it on this form, shows the excess of revenues or expenditures over revenues. Basically, if we were a business, we would say that's our profit and loss line, and we are in black the next 2 years and then in the red the next 3 years for that year. But we do have a balance that holds in black all 5 years of forecast. And then if we extend that on out, it will start to drop off quickly because we have a lot of items like the levy expiring at some point. The effect of a freeze in multiple years like that eventually affects the balance in state funding. And the fact we're picking up those salaries in the general fund, like I mentioned earlier. Any questions about the forecast?
So I think it's always important to kind of, it's extremely complicated topic with respect to real estate, right? So real estate taxes and the benefits or the property revenue we have off of that. So when the reassessment's done next year, right? That's on new construction and inside millage, correct?
Right.
And so that's roughly 12% of our overall income comes from, as I recall, from inside village. Is that thereabouts?
That's a ballpark, yes.
So it's not like because your house gets reassessed an extra $100,000 that you therefore get taxed in that ratio to where you pay more to the district. It's not, by no means correlates 1-to-1. In some cases, home values will go up and your property taxes can actually go down as it is compared to the rest of the community. So if your property values increase more than the average, then your property taxes will go up. If not, they can actually go down.
They can increase, the value can increase, but the taxes can go down.
Yes.
So less than the average.
So it's extremely complicated, and we didn't make the rules. We didn't make the laws that make all this work or not work. So as Mr. Lang is talking about, as you get past, after whatever it is, 2024 here, start for 2025, I guess it is, we start bringing in less money than we're spending. And as a result, yeah, we start eating away at our surplus that we have at this point. So as you get, just understand that it's extremely complicated. Discuss your property values go up and you have to pay more taxes doesn't mean that it's just held in the same ratio to the school district. The state of Ohio is to be thanked for that. The funding model is still quite a mess. In spite of the Fair School Funding Plan, which was supposed to take, at least on the headline, take care of the school funding, and it doesn't. It helps some school districts substantially. I think Kettering, last I heard, they got something like $16 million extra on the Fair School Funding Plan, about 5 miles over. I think we got a few $100,000 per year, thereabouts. I don't know how much that's changed, but that's the last I heard.
And the biennial budget coming up doesn't look any better. We're basically getting zero increase in that.
So again, districts like ours are penalized because we have high property values compared to the rest of the state, high income compared to the rest of the state. So therefore, the state goes, "Oh, you're fine." But we're not, because you have people above the 50th percentile, they're doing well. People below the 50th percentile, we have people that even approach poverty in our community. And unfortunately, the state just categorizes the whole community as doing well. So therefore, they do not, in a correlated way, provide us funding for that. So it's going to always be a struggle until something changes. And I don't, honestly, I don't know what the answer is. It's just always a good problem. But I know we bring it up every time you go through this, but we have different audiences, and it's something constantly to be brought before the community. That it isn't like we're getting a bunch of extra money because your house went up in value. We actually be getting no more extra money from your home just because it went up in value. So,
Not to belabor, but to add to that, I think another struggle for us as a Bellbrook-Sugarcreek community is we don't have a ton of commercial property either. For a school district, commercial property brings in tax revenue without students, which helps. All of our property, for the most part, Bellbrook-Sugarcreek, brings us students, so it brings us cost in addition to revenue. So as much as we love our green space, commercial development does help in that way. And I'm not pushing for further commercial development, but it's a factor.
when you look back in the 80s, we got somewhere around 67% of our funding from the state. Now, at the last I heard, we were
25.
We were 27, 26, 25. So, yeah.
I'd just like to comment on 6.010, sorry, 6.010. And it's an expected scenario where we are creating a reserve for a few years and then using up that reserve for a few years. That's kind of how it ebbs and flows. When you have a new levy, you actually are bringing in more than you need for that year, as you kind of put it in reserve in order to be able to spend it, in future years when your income is level, but your expenses are not going up. So it's not that we're making bad choices in those years. It's that's part of the expected scenario.
And the other thing that kind of plays into what you all just said, we are below average in the state of Ohio in dollars spent per pupil.
Yes.
So,
We're doing a
state
great
funding
job.
has created that. So that's all I have. Unless we have any other comments.
You say you did get the definitions of these on the webpage then? Thanks for doing that, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Mr. Liming, will you please call the roll on adoption of the 5-year forecast?
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn.
Yes.
Up next, item number 4 on our agenda is an opportunity for the board to share any correspondence.
I got a whole lot of correspondence. since our last meeting. A lot of it related to, actually the vast majority relating to harassment and bullying. And unfortunately, a lot of the techniques used by persons who wanted to express their concerns about harassment and bullying were harassing and bullying types of techniques. Now I realize that some of them come from outside of our community as well, but it just did seem ironic. So if you sent me one that was harassing and bullying, you could probably expect not to hear from me. So.
Okay, we will move on to agenda item number 5, best part of the meeting, good news recognition. We have quite a lot of people to honor and thank. First, we're going to honor our salutatorian for this year, and that is Joshua Salbaum.
I'm going to go on just real quick.
And Joshua, would you like to introduce maybe people who came with you tonight or say a few words?
Yep. So who came up with me tonight is my sister, Maggie. She's a freshman as well at Bellbrook. My mom and my dad. I thank them for everything. Thanks.
Yeah. Up next, we'd like to honor our co-valedictorians. So in no particular order here. Donghan Lee. I'm sorry. Well, it's Daphne. Daphne Lee, thank you.
Just you. Thank you.
Like to share who you brought with you?
My parents couldn't make it, but thanks to them.
Our other co-valedictorian, Julia Wall.
Sorry.
Just you. Anything you'd like to share for us?
My mom is right there. She's been with me every step, so thank you.
We have a lot of folks who are retiring and unfortunately leaving us this year. I'd like to welcome up Susan Campbell. Ms. Campbell has been an intervention specialist for 23 years. Wow. Thank you so much for everything. And then please share something if you like. Anything you'd like to say?
Thank you for letting me do my job. I love the students, so I will so miss them.
Let's see if I make the other husbands look bad. Next is Lisa Dorn, who's been an intervention specialist with us for 16 years.
Just you. Now I don't have to chase you down here.
The floor is yours if you'd like to share anything.
Well, I just wanted to thank all of my parents that I've worked with for letting me, I get emotional, sorry, for letting me take care of your children and love your children for all these years. I appreciate it. This was my second career, but I've loved every minute of it. Thank you.
Mrs. Sarah Henderson, who's been our kindergarten teacher for 34 years.
I'd like to say a few words. Today has been an emotional day for me. We had our kindergarten program where the kindergartners performed for their parents. Some of the students that I have this year, I had their parents years ago. So while I'm looking forward to retirement, it's hard to say goodbye. I am truly blessed to have worked and lived in Bellbrook for over 30 years. I hope I have had a positive impact on my students' lives. I know they have positively impacted mine. Thank you.
Elisa Tackett, been with us 29 years in the district. BMS Family and Life, not present. All right, we can pull on that for her. Johnny Roberts, custodian for 30 years. Mr. Roberts not present. And Eva Wasty, special needs assistant for 22 years.
Hey, I want to thank everybody. I mean, it's a tough job, but I love it, and I love Bellbrook schools. I graduated from Bellbrook a long time ago. My kids, Brett and Jamie, are here. They graduated from Bellbrook, and 2 of my grandkids went to Bellbrook. One graduated, and Braden's here tonight. So that says something about the school that we live here and that we have stuck it out and been through a lot of things with the school. So I want to thank everybody. It's been nice, and I'm hoping this up. So we'll see.
We have a very special presentation. I'm not sure how often this happens. Maybe somebody can let me know. But we're going to be honoring an employee who's been here for 50 years. Ms. Belinda Frieden, if you could please come forward. So Miss Bo has had quite a storied career, and I'm really excited to read some of this. In your office the other day, I think you told me maybe you tried to retire, and no, that's not. So we're just honoring you for continuing your service and your work. You're not done at 50, but you retired from your regular school bus driver position here in our district in 2009 after 36 years. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Yes. I always say school bus drivers, God bless them. I can't handle 2 kids in the back of my truck. I don't know how you do it. You return to substitute and assist our transportation supervisor in everything: driving, managing, answering phones, calming excited parents, perhaps at times. Always with children coming first and putting a great face on our community. Right. You've been an active participant at the high school color guard, award-winning national championship high school marching band, and as director of the nationally acclaimed independent baton dance performance ensemble, the Bellbrook Eaglets. Yes. Yeah. As a 2002 recipient of our Sugar Maple Festival Citizen of the Year, Ms. Bo has been referred to as one of the most influential persons in Bellbrook for her commitment to young people. You don't get a vote, everybody else does. You were most recently inducted in the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Education Foundation Hall of Fame for your distinguished community service. You were respected statewide as evidenced by your 2019 George Sontag Award for Distinguished Service as a Driver. That's awarded every year by the Ohio Association for Pupil Transportation. Belinda is completing an unprecedented 50 years of service to Bellbrook-Sugarcreek schools. Thank you so much.
No, I can't do a 5-minute speech. I'm not a speaker. But a lot of my bus driver friends are here, and even our mechanic came out tonight. That's an honor right there. So, but no, I've loved every minute of driving the bus. And like I think Sarah said, teaching some of the kids now, and you had their parents, I got grandparents, like, yeah, actually, yes, there's some kids that get on the bus now that I drove their grandparents. Did I drive you, Pam?
No, you did not drive me, but you were driving
When you were here, okay. Yeah, see, I don't even remember all of it. So, and the neat thing too is I'm still really close to a lot of the kids from color guard, eaglettes, all that stuff. The kids on the bus going to weddings. Kids I drove, like I have one little girl that started in kindergarten and just a few years ago went up to Cleveland to her wedding. And it's just so neat. And Barb Seiler, Chris Long, we're all very close, so we still travel a lot and do a lot together. But the band, oh my gosh, I could stand here forever and talk about the band, but the band is such a rewarding experience. And anybody that has kids in it right now, man, you can't beat it because it is just wonderful, every little inch of it. So, but is that 5 minutes? But thank you all. I have loved every minute.
All right, thank you so much, everybody.
If I could just say a few words, just again to our retirees, to Bo, thank you, congratulations, on behalf of the board, administration, teachers, staff, the entire school district, just a sincere thank you. You could probably think of those times where you made impacts on kids, but it's those times where you don't realize that you're making an impact on a kid. And those are really the impactful times. So just a sincere thank you. Appreciate it. Congratulations.
Just kids, I noticed there's a couple of names here that weren't called. They just not present tonight.
Not present, yes.
We want to name the other, so.
Let's do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, please. And you have questions. Sorry, I did intend to do that. I was going to do that at the end. Thank you. So Mr. Jeff Eckley, 26 years as a middle school principal and athletic director, retiring this year. Susan Sela, another one of our favorite teachers my kids have had, after 25 years. Deborah Sherritt, 33 years, Stephen Bell reading. Apologies, is that everybody?
Yep.
Lisa Tackett.
We mentioned Lisa.
Lisa Tackett.
Yeah.
Sorry.
29 years in our district. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yep. Next up, I have the pleasure for an award for OHSPRA. That is a communications award. That is the statewide organization for communications. And so Henry Conte, our school and community relations coordinator, come on up here. Henry. So a few of the things, at the state conference, I had the pleasure to come on up here. So I had the pleasure to be there when he was awarded marks of distinction in writing for a seat at the table about Jennifer Huff. Also mark of excellence, the bridge and Eagle Eggs. Eagle Eggs is the weekly update that Mr. Conte sends out every week. A lot of great information in there. And then also in collaboration with Kathy Barlow and Sasha Taylor at BCI, a video cereal box, Domino's. So again, a great addition. Henry's new to our district this year, so great addition. He's doing great work, and I'm sure that will continue. So again, congratulations.
It's always the portion of the meeting where I say that anybody under the age of 22 or so, if you want to duck out, that's totally fine. We don't expect, thank you, sir. Don't expect anybody else to stay for the business portion. And we will be moving into reports to the board here in just a second. I recently made the mistake of saying anybody under the age of 40 who wants to leave, and a few teachers looked at me a little like I was showing my age. We won't make that mistake again. Our first report to the board, Lori Smith, our transportation coordinator. Thanks so much for being here again. Good to see you.
My pleasure. Good evening, everyone. First, let me just say that woman right there who you just acknowledged for her 50 years, I could not do this job without her. So thank you so much for recognizing her dedication. She can tell you every street. She can tell you the mailbox on that street and the color of the front door when I go, oh, where do I need to go? So thank you again very much. So, thank you. So, just to give you a little background, I'm here tonight to present to you all regarding our red light violators and some possible camera systems and solutions to a problem that was asked of me by Mr. Price over here regarding some of the problems that we've seen nationwide with disregard to bus safety, especially when it comes to student stops. So jumping right in, just to give you a little background. So the primary focus when we are stopping to pick up or drop off a student is really the driver's focused on that student. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces that they also have to focus on, but their biggest thing is establishing that eye contact with the student and using our 6 very strict rules, which is you're checking for traffic, you are checking your mirrors, you are making eye contact with the student, you are establishing their place of safety, and then in addition to that, there are 4 direct lines of instruction especially when you're crossing a student for either pickup or discharge. So that right there is our key. It's vital to student safety. So as long as we are properly training our children to watch the driver, remain in their place of safety, and check traffic anytime they have to cross the street themselves, we are set up for success. But as you all know, we can do our best, and it doesn't stop the people who still remain in their 3-foot world and are not paying attention. So recently, we upgraded our new buses with 8-way flashers. So we have our student warning lights at the top, which are an amber color, and they're in the front and the back. We have our student stop. It's a we have warning. We have stop. The stops are red, front and back. And then down at the bottom, we also have amber and red flashing lights at the bumper level in the front and the back of the bus. We've also added an illuminated and reflective stop sign to help make that bigger and brighter and stand out more. So we're doing everything between training the kids, following our procedures, and adding these additions to the bus. We're doing everything we can to work to eliminate this problem. However, so we make approximately 3,091 stops a week where we load or unload students to the right or the left being across the bus. We've been in session for 34 weeks. It's been actually longer, but with spring break, Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, it averages about 34 weeks when I pulled this data. In that time, that actually equates to 105,094 total bus stops this year, at the time I pulled this data, which was just last week. We've reported 29 red light violations to date. Okay, 6 of them were sent to Bellbrook PD. 4 of them were issued a citation. 2 of them were not because we didn't have complete information in order for that citation to be issued. 23 were sent to Sugarcreek PD. 20 of them were issued a citation, but 3 of them, again, were not because we didn't have complete information. And by complete information, we have to have the license plate, we have to have a description of the driver so that there's no question as to who was driving the vehicle when it passed the stop sign, okay?
Or if I'm not mistaken, there was also, I believe, 8 or so where you weren't able to gather enough data.
So in the next line, you'll see that it averaged to approximately about 1 a week. Some weeks were heavier, some, oh, what happened? Okay. So there's about 1 a week that we get. Now, it doesn't equal to 1 a week, but what it does is that some weeks are bad. We'll have 2 or 3 of them, and then other weeks we won't have any. So it's averaging again to about 1 a week that we can't do anything with because we weren't able to get a complete license plate. We had a partial license plate, but then we didn't have a description of the driver because they just took off. They made 0 attempt to stop. So with those, it probably, we're looking at about, let's say 34 to 38 of those that we can't
I
even
misunderstood.
report.
It was actually more than that. It's about 1 a week. You're seeing it just goes right on because you can't capture enough information.
Correct, right. And along with that, we also did a study to see where in the district that these are occurring most frequently. And we have identified those areas. We're looking at Little Sugar, we're looking at 725, we're looking at Wilmington, just to name a few. And then surprisingly, right down in town. It's 25 miles per hour, so not really sure what's going on there, but we have quite a few right down in town. So with that, I have talked to both Captain Lane and our resource officer for Sugar Creek, and both have agreed to post police officers, patrolmen in these areas at the time of day that we're capturing this data in an effort to try and show a presence and slow this process down. And then capture anyone who is actually doing it because they can get that information a whole lot easier than we can. When this happens, just to give you a little idea of what that looks like, so we've pulled up to the stop, we've actuated our student warning lights, they're the ambers. We pull our brake, we put the gear into neutral, and that keeps the bus safe. When we open the door, our stop arm comes out with the flashing red lights. The lights at the top of the bus turn to red, the back of the bus turn to red. So it's big and showy, yet people say all the time they just missed it. An actual red light violation is when they actually cross past that stop arm. So some of them just keep going, and others will stop 10 feet past the stop arm. When you go past that stop arm, that is a violation. Okay. Let's go back. No, we're good there. Okay. So in reviewing this with Mr. Price originally, we looked at, and I didn't bring it for you tonight, but if you would like to see any of this video, I'd be happy to share it with you. The process in capturing that past the stop arm violation. So currently we have a couple of different configurations on our bus, but none of the cameras are outside. So at this particular point in time, capturing that essential data regarding the driver's license and the description of the driver is solely lays on the shoulders of our bus driver. So they have to capture that information, and a lot of times they'll just pick up the radio and they'll blurt it out to us and give us as much of the license plate information as possible. But it's 100% on the shoulders of the driver. Where the drivers are most concerned, of course, is the safety of that child. So they're not thinking about this driver's license or the license plate or characteristics. Their eyes are 100% focused on where that kid is and laying on their horn so that the kids know, if you hear my horn, stop and look at me for further directions. That's one of those direct 4 lines. So they're not looking at that. Where our buses are set up now, and like I said, we have 2 different configurations with different ages and models of our camera system. The oldest being, we have a camera that's on the driver at the door. We have a camera in the forward of the bus looking backwards, and a camera in the back of the bus looking forward. Obviously, none of those are outside. The best that we can do is when we have a red light violation, we pull the SD card. We watch the video, we isolate and save those 3 cameras showing that on the driver, we see inside the bus the light that indicates that the stop arm was actually out and activated. From the back camera, if they've run us from tail to nose, we usually get them coming down the side of the bus And from the front, we usually get them going past the flashing light especially if it's overcast or in the dark. So it's not great, but it is something. Along with a written violation report, we send that then to whichever police department the violation took place in. If we have enough information then to go ahead and issue a citation and it goes to court, they then take my driver off the road for a day and they have to go to court and they have to show up to say, yes, that this information is verifiable or certify that I did capture this and report it. And, it usually goes from there. So we know that adding the cameras that we're about to talk about is not going to actually stop anyone from running our red lights, but I'm hoping that with a multi-layer approach of communicating it and providing education not only to the district but the community, the broader part of the community, that we will start to create awareness of this situation.
Where you just talked about the need to pull a driver off to go to court. There was some discussion about whether some of these systems are accepted as a validation without the need for the driver to go in. And so the safety meeting we had a couple weeks ago, I discussed that with police officers and Chief Brown and Carmen, from the township and the city, and they weren't so sure about that. So I don't have any clarity on that.
So my understanding of it is it's up to the prosecutor.
Okay.
So there is high resolution, which we'll talk about, that captures, this information at the level of the license plate. And it just really depends on the prosecutor in the area.
Okay.
So this particular prosecutor that we're working with, he is not relenting on that after speaking with him. He wants our drivers to show up because people who start out with a not guilty tend to change their tune when they have the actual driver there. Yeah. So I don't know that we're necessarily going to get away from that. But one of the things that you and I also discussed is the process of going through this is very labor intensive. So I have to get one of my mechanics to go out to the bus and physically retrieve the hard drive or the SD card. And then we come in and we sit down and we watch it, because even though we mark the camera, there's wiggle room there as far as the timing. We cut, save, put it all together, get the paperwork filled out, and then send it on to respective police departments. So it's a little labor intensive, but it's certainly, worth the cause. So, however, like I was saying, we know that this isn't going to stop them. So along with the suggestion that I have for you, one of the other things that I'd like to talk about again is creating that community awareness and making sure that we are providing additional training to our students at the beginning of the year. So to jump right into it, there are two options that, first, I'm sorry, let me back up. So the camera system that you see here on the right side, no, left side. Well, you're this side. My left, your right. This is a dash camera. So this will be installed right below the rear view mirror on the bus, and it captures 180 degrees in the front of the bus. So that will allow us to see any oncoming traffic, as well as additional, whatever. It's going to help with accidents if, we witness one in front of us, those types of things. This here is the stop arm camera. So that generally they call it a stop arm camera, but it's generally placed below where the stop arm comes out, and it's down at the level so that it's creating a tunnel so that you capture these license plates, whether they run as nose to tail or tail to nose. Okay, so that is the basic suggestion that we have. Looking at these two options. So in option one, which is the far one, it would, and I should also add that with our new buses, so from our 2018 buses but current, so 2018 to 2023. Those buses are currently set up with a 4-camera system inside, so you're getting complete coverage. It's by the driver, and then they're offset 3 more cameras on the way back. They're a 1080p 5/0 camera system. I mean, they're they're awesome. The clarity on them is fantastic. It's great for student management because it covers the entire area of the bus. Oh, and it's key that I.
It's not you, I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
That's it. Again. Yep.
Well, check your hand out then. So, with going with option number one, what we would have to do is redeploy one of the cameras on the inside of the bus to be a camera on the outside of the bus. So with our 2018s to present, we would have to move all of our current setup of cameras inside, cover holes where they have been made to stage the cameras, but we would be able to use our current hard drives. We would add the stop arm camera and the dash camera because there's enough ports, camera ports, to make this work. So that is our sort of our least expensive, least kind of invasive, but more labor intensive option. It disappeared again. If you can kind of see on your handout, there are like two areas where we lose some visibility if we take one of the cameras away from the inside of the bus.
Do it again. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm too fast.
Option number two that you see here is, again, adding that dash camera, adding the stop arm camera on the outside, but it keeps the 4 cameras inside the bus, which assists us with student management. The difference here with that one is we do have to upgrade our hard drive. So we have to go to a hard drive that has additional ports for all of these extra cameras. So there's a cost with that, but it's less labor intensive. Just to give you some background. So let's talk cost on the back page. So the current system that we install in our new buses, or from 2018 on, you're looking at 4 internal 5-point HD cameras with a 500 gigabyte hard drive and the cables and connectors for $2,147.50 per bus. We do our own install. Thank you to my mechanics. We do our own install, so that helps us, cut out the labor portion of this. But that is just the base cost of outfitting one bus with a camera system that we currently use today. In option one, we would continue to use the three of the 4 cameras inside the bus. We actually then would take one of the old cameras, or one of the excess cameras out of the bus, and we can then deploy that down the line. And again, this is the same hard drive. It adds the dash camera and the stop arm camera, cables and connectors. And so that price comes to $2,493.75 per bus. Okay. The reason this one, it uses the same hard drive, but it's a little bit more labor intensive because we do have to, in moving cameras, we'll have to fill holes and rerun wire or cable. And just to give you an idea of how that breaks down, so it's $288.60 for the dash cam, and a stop arm camera is $337.50. Now, obviously, the more you buy, the bigger the discount gets. That is a purchasing option for us. In option 2, where we get to keep the 4 internal HD cameras, but we get to upgrade to a 1 terabyte hard drive that has Wi-Fi and is GPS capable. And I believe that Mr. Price and I discussed the need for kind of building up our infrastructure when it comes to Wi-Fi, but I know that there's a project going on because I will be getting some upgrades to my Wi-Fi, which will be great. So that's something that, kind of is down the line. But we get a 1 terabyte hard drive, which is great. We get a dash camera, and then we get 2 stop arm cameras with cables and connectors. So with the 2 stop arm cameras, you get one that you can point forward, catching runners from nose to tail, and a second one right next to it that catches runners from tail to nose. And the reason why that's important is because Ohio decided to take front license plates off. So if we only have 1 camera, anyone who runs us wherever we point it, if they run us from the opposite direction, we will not, this would be pointless.
We're on the Wi-Fi there, if I remember correctly, the potential it offers is rather than a maintenance person going out and having to grab the SD card,
Yes.
as buses drive in, it can upload video,
Yes.
so you don't have to go out and pull the card.
Correct. And additionally, with this Wi-Fi system, I am actually able to remote in and view things almost live. It's not exactly live stream, but I'm able to remote in with just a few second delay, which is really amazing too, because it's not just for stop, for red light runners, but it's also for student management. Like it would be great for student management. A driver could radio in and say, I have a problem. I can remote right in. We can take a look at it. We can call parents and have us meet them at the stop. We can call PD if we need to and have them meet us at a stop, depending on the situation. So it's the latest and greatest and the best technology that's out there. But it does come with a cost. So as you can see, it's a considerable amount more. We're looking at $3,815 per bus. So we currently have 16 buses that are what we refer to as capable of having this technology. We have 16 buses that live in the 2018 to present, with the 2016 model as a question. We have anything older is really not worth us putting our money into, because they're very high miles and they're not going to be on the road hopefully much longer, and that's just not it's throwing good money after bad. It's just not a smart investment. It's not a smart investment. Additionally, there's 16 buses that are older than 2016, and we don't even want to put that out as a recommendation. So what I would like to propose to Dr. Kozad and to the board is that we, at the beginning of the school year, we host an assembly at all school buildings where we do a presentation to various age groups. Obviously you can't do Stephen Bell in high school with the same presentation, but we would like to use that as an opportunity to provide training to all of the students on how to properly wait for a bus, how to watch for your driver's hand signal so that you can safely board a bus, and go through all of these safety things that we don't get a whole lot of time and try to catch the first couple days of school while there's all kinds of craziness going on. The second part to my plan is to create a social media campaign. I would, of course, use our inside man here, but putting something together not only for the district, but to the wider community to go over and explain why this is an issue and why it is important that you stop and pay attention to what's going on. And when you start adding the value equation behind that, a lot of people, it's surprising, but we get several parents who run our lights. And it blows my mind because they've put their kid on a bus somewhere. So creating a buzz, creating an education to it is also an essential part of solving this issue. If we go with the new camera system, I would like to also showcase that through this social media campaign so that we can show the community that we are working towards zero tolerance. With that, I know 16 buses is a lot. We have 4 areas of town that have been identified as the most violators. I'd like to start with the 4 buses, put these systems on those, put those buses in those areas, and start tracking and gathering the data behind the effectiveness of this. Any questions?
Where I leave this as a administrative decision, from my perspective, with your input. I think it's obviously a really smart move to go ahead and go with the 4 new buses with this newer system. Delta cost between the old system is quite cumbersome to either catch someone that's doing something wrong or download the data later. The Delta cost is $1,700. What I'm looking at, $2,150 versus $3,800.
Right.
So $1,650 or whatever. So I think it's a really good idea to do that, to go with those 4 buses. and then we can learn from it. The only thing I would just throw out there though is that the ones you catch and the ones you don't catch, we're really averaging about 2 a week, right? That's thereabouts. It was 30 some that was 32 or whatever it was.
Right.
She did have information on it, plus the 29 other ones, and we have like 36-week school year or something like that. So when I look, just an observation, again, I'll leave this decision to y'all to work out. If we get all 16 buses, $61,000, it's just a guess. I believe those systems will probably last at least 10 years.
Easily.
So if you amortize that, or whatever the proper word is, it would cost us on the order of $6,000 a year, to cover this for 10 years. And so I don't see that as a really substantial expense in the district in light of our full budget. The other thing that becomes a concern is if we build a Frankenstein system here. These buses have this.
Right.
And now 5 years from now, where we got these from, that company's now been bought out, or they've gone out of business. Now we're gonna maybe have a combined, again, Frankenstein, this series of buses have that, those series of buses have that, this. I'm personally in favor of seeing all the buses equipped. I will defer to you all though on that decision, but just for the reason I just pointed out, we don't have an insignificant problem with red light or stoplight runners. It's $6,000 a year to cover all the buses. And I'm concerned about what happens over time if we have a mixture of buses. And this has that, the others have that, So, but again, I refer to you all.
And it's a valid point. That's where we're sitting at right now. So we have basically 3 different systems right now that are, and 2 different setups because of those different systems. The great part about this is the company that we will be engaging to do this, REI, they've been in business for a long time. They're a reputable company. They also, I've lost the word. What's the word? When they get new ones, they make them all backwards compatible.
Yes.
Yes. So they make everything backwards compatible. So even if there was new technology, it still would be compatible with existing technology, just like many of the buses that we have today is that. This is, like I said, it's the latest and greatest. I don't see it getting much better than this for 5 to 10 years.
It was not lost on me either, though, what you said about the level of work that's required from you and your team, with the current system.
Yeah.
So that means something to me.
Sure.
That it can alleviate, because I think you're a bit busy, just I think,
Little.
The other day I went down there and you were on vacation, so I'm not so sure yet. So, but no, I know you all work extremely hard, and I see this as a labor alleviator. But I'll shut up now. Those are my thoughts.
That's fine. Thank you.
I just can't get past the fact that, who does this? Like, it really, like, I don't know, maybe I will live under a rock, I don't know, but the fact that this is happening as often as we're trying. And it makes me want to start a social media, like use these cameras and start a social media campaign of just public shaming, like if we catch you, we're putting you out there.
Well, I don't know about that.
We can talk through the legalities of that, but it's really, I defer to Dr. Kozab as to what is within the budget. I think installing even some of these around so that folks know, that don't try it. You might get caught. It's helpful, and I even think just letting people know that you're going to the extent that you are to prosecute cases. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good night.
Our next report to the board is a policy update for 5517.01 by Mrs. Dorn.
Okay, so to bring everyone kind of up to date, or to kind of level set where we are, regarding 551701. At the end of our last meeting, I made a motion, it was motion, yeah, I got it, motion 23-71, that documented our intent to update this policy. So this, what I'm showing here, is the policy as it stands today, as it has been since 2015. This policy was not touched. And this is the first couple paragraphs of it. This policy actually goes on for 4 pages, but the meat of the intro and the substance of it is really in these first 2 paragraphs. And so if anyone wants to see the policy in its entirety, you can find it on the website. Everyone can do it. But this policy was not changed during the last meeting, and it has it originated in 2006, and it has been in this state since 2015. So I read from this policy at the beginning of last meeting to clarify that our bullying harassment policy covers all students, but perhaps it's easier to ingest if you see it in writing. So I think important parts here are, I have to sit here, safe, positive, productive, and nurturing educational environment for all of our students, and the harassment, intimidation, or bullying toward a student, whether by other students, staff, or third parties, is strictly prohibited and will not be tolerated. So this is the policy as it stands today and as it has been for quite some time. So the motion that happened at the end of the last meeting that—
I'm so sorry, I just want to reiterate. That has been in place, that was not changed, it is still in place. Yes.
Correct. Was originated in 2006, has not been changed since 2015. All right, so motion that happened toward the end of last meeting documented our intent to, after hearing from the community, to further clarify that when it says all students in the first paragraph, and when it says toward a student in the second paragraph, that truly does include all students, including LGBT students and students that are members of particular groups. So I threw out in probably 11 p.m. or something by that time, but I threw out some kind of example language, kind of, this is, we're going to document the intent to change it to something like this, that we need to put some more thought behind the language. So later on in the meeting, I'll actually make a formal motion, or I intend to make a formal motion to add some language here. But I did get to sit down last week with 3 of the officers of GSA, which is the Gay Straight Alliance at the high school. 3 just incredibly impressive young ladies who came to the table. We spent about an hour and a half first just getting to know one another, learning a little bit about one another's backgrounds. They had a number of questions that they didn't feel like were perhaps answered, or they wanted to ask some clarifying questions, because they had, all 3 had attended their first board meeting and were learning how this process works, learning how the Meetings Act works, learning how policy revisions typically work. And so that was the first portion of the meeting. But then we really continued by just collaborating on, all right, the board voted unanimously that we were going to make some changes to this policy, which is our in-house policy regarding bullying. It's other policies that were addressed were summarizing frankly federal law, but other lawmaking bodies. This is our in-house policy, and so to the extent that we could provide that group some reassurance that this policy does apply to them, what words would be reassuring, right? Because at this point in time, this covers all students, but any further clarification or explanation in my mind, I'm fine with that. I'm happy to make sure that people understand that they're protected here. So these young ladies they didn't even all agree at times, and we batted around some ideas. Our administrator, our principal at the high school, Mr. Han, was present, as well as their advisor, and we kind of threw around words and ideas and rearranged them. And so, Henry, if you'd like to go this is where, this is what we collaboratively came up with. I shared this with leadership from the teachers and our two unions, our staff members unions yesterday. But basically it is just providing further reassurance. Well, I'll say it does three things. It provides further reassurance to that particular community, number one. I think there's two other things that this does that I find positive. Number one, it brings up, and maybe I should read it you can see the bold here, but it's adding harassment, intimidation, or bullying toward a student for any reason, including their sexual orientation, gender identity, or membership in any other population or group, whether by other students, and then it goes on. So it doesn't just move the sexual orientation or gender identity language from the 5517 policy to the 5517.01. But it also states that bullying for any reason is wrong. And if you disagree with that, then I disagree with you. And it also applies to membership in any other group. So bullying an individual is wrong, bullying a group of individuals is wrong. So I think I was very proud of the work that we were able to do, and I really commend not just those students, but a lot of the students who came and spoke very passionately but respectfully, and I hope you'll really consider this later when we further discuss. I think another benefit of all of this is that I think what this is saying to our students is that civic engagement matters, coming in, making your voice heard matters, reaching out to us matters, and that we do listen and we'll sit down and work with you, because I don't think there's any intent from anyone on this board to make someone, certainly not to make someone be in danger or unprotected, but also not to make them feel unprotected. And so to the extent that we can provide them reassurance and further clarify that this policy has always and continues to apply to all of our students, and any reason for being bullied is wrong, then that's where I sit. So again, I know this comes up later in the agenda, but I thought it was probably prudent to share this as a report to the board prior to open communication period, in case anyone from the community wants to respond to this language or provide input prior to my motion. I think that's where I'll leave it.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. We'll get back to that a little bit later in our agenda. That moves us on to item number 7, open communication period. Your thoughts and comments are welcome during this time. When given the floor, please share your name, address, and any group affiliation you hold if it's relevant. You will then have 5 minutes for your comments. That's a recent change. Last time it was 3 minutes. As one of the policies we wanted to update, provide a little bit more time for folks to share their thoughts. So you will then have 5 minutes for your comments, which should be directed towards the presiding officer and no one else. Tonight that happens to be me. In case you're wondering, the reason for these policies, which can be read in their entirety on the district's website, it's in policy number 169.91, is to ensure that everyone who wishes to speak has time to do so, and that every speaker is treated equally and fairly. So first up is Ben Purcell. Ben, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. And you have 5 minutes.
A paper.
Absolutely, yeah, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So my name is Ben Purcell. I live at 3786 Poetry's Court, and I wanted to touch on the 5571.01. Mrs. Dorn had really, I think that going into it, there was a lot of emotional attachment to the issue, and there was a lot of really big thoughts about what was going on, kind of like confusion and like almost a craze. And Mr. Carpenter had mentioned earlier about some kind of bullying or negative remarks that had been made in favor of that kind of thing. So I just kind of wanted to reiterate that when we're dealing with an issue like this, dealing with an issue of inclusivity, of wanting to make our schools a safer place for everyone, that representation of the group is completely off. When we're dealing with issues of this, we want to do it cordially, civilly, and with love and friendship. So I was disappointed to hear that. But I was very excited to hear about the discussion that Ms. Dorn had with the GSA members. And I liked the proposal that you had, but I think that we could go just a little more specific, because I feel like really just casting a wide net, when people see something representing them in the rules and in the policy specifically, I feel like that makes them feel safer. Because, I mean, all students is very clear. But I think that when you can directly relate to something on a deeper level, like more than just the student, more of who you are, I think that that is really providing something super positive to the student. So in my proposal, I don't have a copy up with me right now, but yes. Thank you. Bad planning on my part. Yes, so the Board of Education is committed to providing a safe, positive, productive, and nurturing education environment for all of its students, irregardless of race, ethnicity, national origin, religious identity, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, or disability. So I think everyone can identify to at least something in here. That all people can go in and say, hey, that's me mentioned directly in this policy that is governing our school and governing our anti-harassment policy. So I think that our true goal of becoming a more inclusive school, and a school that really shows that we want everyone to be heard, we want everyone to be represented and protected equally, I think that the best way to do that is by including specific language like this in the change itself. And I am hoping very much that you will consider this proposal and pass it.
Thank you very much.
And we don't back and forth during this part, but I'll let you
May I just say, if you'll permit me, what an excellent presentation and just a model of civility and respect. Thank you so much. Well, very well done, sir.
Yes.
Up next, Brian Cronenberger. Welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Brian Cronenberger, 104 Washington Mill Road. I'm bringing up a couple different things. First off, I'd like to start off with the 5517. I know that we moved all of this stuff into the 5517.01. I'm really trying to figure out the reason why. I understand that there is this nebulous legal reason, but I have yet to hear an actual legal reason why we moved it from one to the other. I listen to Supreme Court oral arguments for fun, so I love law and I love learning that kind of stuff. So I've been racking my brain on it. I've been talking to my lawyer friends, and they can't seem to find a real reason why. The only reason why that I've heard for that change and this whole upheaval of everything really has been for sports. And that's really the only justification that I've heard that actually makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me, but it makes sense I can see a reason why. So I would really like to see some more explanation or someone just give me an actual reason of why we went through what we did last meeting and then why we're still trying to parse this out. It just doesn't make sense to me. On that note, when it comes to one of the thoughts that I had in the past couple weeks was, I know that there is a way that students can go to teachers or principals or Dr. Kozad if they're being bullied or whatnot. They can be anonymous or not. My thought was, what if there is an online portal that the students could click on easily when they're at the safe space of their house or a safe room where they trust a teacher, and they can just type up something. They can be anonymous or not, and that way we can actually gather some metrics on what kind of bullying there is. Because right now it's just a nebulous bullying. We don't know. And so if we could gather some metrics, we might be able to figure out how to really stop this and everybody be inclusive about it. Next thing, I like the report on the taxes and the levies, and I like that there was a lot of explanation in that, but half the people in here were under 20 at that point, and some of us just don't like numbers. I do. Charts. You guys can print some charts out. It's on Excel. You can quickly put it in charts and show, like, hey, if your house costs this much and it went, wherever, make it easy for the public, because I know that you guys are trying to explain it to us, but make it easy for us to understand, or at least anybody else watching at home that may not know how finances work or understand how taxes and levies work. Make it easy to understand that, oh, if I plug my number in or punch it in here, this is how much I'm going to pay if this levy passes or whatever. Finally, my main concern was the specialized detail of security arrangements and emergency protocols. I know that you guys had a meeting a couple weeks ago about that. Now, our law does state, with the Ohio Sunshine laws and with our own policy, that the only time that executive purposes are used is for the specialized detail of security arrangements and emergency protocols. I just want to make sure that that is reiterated, because I believe in open transparency, especially with the public, especially with a bunch of us going to be in, have our kids in schools when there's active guns in schools. It's not that so somebody's bringing them in. We're putting guns in schools apparently. And so I think that parents should know what actually is going to be happening, not just some nebulous whatever. I would like to know who this protocol or this detail arrangement is that we're the safety response team. How are they vetted? How are they insured? What is the protocol for using deadly force? Is it, something as minor as two kids fighting and they can't get them apart, or a kid rushes one of these people? Are they going to be inside the school all the time? Are they going to be uniformed? Are they teachers? Is this a new position that we're going to be paying somebody, or is this volunteers? Because if it's volunteers, that's going to have a lot more issues, I think, than anything else. So I would strongly recommend that we stay away from volunteers. I would also recommend a way to have executive meetings have more open transparency, and that is by appointing a member of the audience or somebody that you guys can pick out that would come back there on executive sessions, would have to sign an NDA, but their sole purpose is just to sit there and listen. And if they understand something to be outside the realm of what that special session was in, then they're allowed to talk to the board's legal counsel or the state attorney to understand if there was a violation. I'm not saying that you guys are, but I am saying that that would make it more transparent. Anyways, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, Dave Buckalow. I almost couldn't read your handwriting, but I got it. Welcome. Thank you very much for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Dr. Smith. David Buckalow, 126 Lower Hillside Drive. Before I get into my scribbles, your meetings are much better than what they used to be. And the tone is better, and the respect for the public is better, and it's a good thing. So I congratulate all of you on that. I had some notes, and I know I'm not supposed to talk to you, but I sort of going to. I'm not going to roast you. But I'm thoroughly confused on this issue. I was confused at the last meeting. I didn't understand the reason why. Your presentation here raises some questions and has me confused. I don't want to address all that, but I don't get it. I seriously, I don't, because it's like you're saying, we want change, we don't want to change, we want to reassure that nothing's going to change, yet we're going to change. And I don't understand the sequence and the reasoning. One of the things I want to say is at the last meeting that you had where Meredith Behringer, I think got up, she asked some questions. And the questions she asked was, my interpretation is, how did this policy change come about? Who recommended it? She didn't get an answer. And I'm listening with my background, and I'm assuming, I'm using the word assume, that the policy change to the board comes through the administration. That's what I'm used to, then the board sort of carries the water on it. I'd like to hear the answer. I think Meredith would like to hear it on how this came about. Did it come through your administrative offices? Did it come through your legal offices? Did it come through people who are writing your code? Or did it come through one of you? But I'd like to know. And I would like to know. I think you're making a mistake on it based on my understanding of it. And I told you how clear my understanding was. I do think you're making a mistake, and based on everything I've heard, I don't understand why you're just not leaving it the same. I want to talk about bullying, which is not the reason I came out, and I don't want to be confrontational, and I don't want to be. But when people say we don't want bullying in the schools, I don't buy that. I sat with a parent, a Bellbrook parent, for 2-3 hours. I sat there with Lisa Ellison, and we went together, and she was at the time the minister of the Bellbrook United Methodist Church. And it was a very detailed discussion. And what I heard was horrific. And it didn't involve other students, it involved adults. And I don't want to explain more than that in this forum about it. I think some of you probably already know what I'm talking about. But, supposedly, look, I believed them. I believed every word they said. They were terrified. They were scared. They didn't know what to do. I know they wrote you letters. They wrote letters to the city. They wrote letters to the township. And I saw that as a reaching out where they were just totally frustrated. But, if you're going to do the no bullying thing, which I hope you do, it's more than just a thing, it needs to be top down all the way through the organization. But I really don't understand why the change, what the rationale is behind it, where it's coming from. I don't know if Meredith is here or not, but I don't think she did either. I think it's a good question. And based on your explanations, I don't know why you're changing anything. So that's it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for being here.
And your meetings are better. I don't feel like I'm walking into a zoo anymore. Okay? There.
Give it about 5 minutes. Thank you. Up next, Mr. Craig Reinhardt. Welcome, thanks for being here. You get 5 minutes.
My name is Craig Reinhardt, and I'm the department chair at the science department at the high school. And I want to start off by thanking you for approving so many nice new textbooks for the department. We're all very excited to kind of get them implemented and ready to go for next year. On a related note, I'm here to address the board regarding the Campbell's Biology and Focus textbook that I proposed for my AP Biology course that was not included in the resources that were approved during the last meeting. It was brought to my attention at one point in the textbook adoption process that there were some concerns about the content in the book. I want to thank the 2 board members that took the time to meet with me to discuss the issue, and want to again extend an invite to the remaining board members to meet with me regarding the issue. Tonight, I'd like to share some information with you about the textbook that will hopefully be a springboard for future productive conversations that will allow us to get on the same page and help us come to a resolution that everybody is satisfied with. The content in question is never discussed, never part of the course objectives, never assessed, and is not mentioned in the AP standards. Therefore, I did not take it into consideration while making the textbook selection. I do not have any plans to incorporate into the instruction, much like several other topics that may appear in this or other textbooks. Textbooks are resources that teachers use carefully, and we teach chapters and sections that align with our course objectives. Despite not being discussed or taught in my class, I'm assuming the presence in the book is still concerning to some of you. In response, I've taken the statements in the book that have caused some concern and submitted them to Pearson, who's a textbook company, to be reviewed by some of their content specialists. They provided a statement clarifying the meaning of the statements, and information in the response mirrors the information found in the Cleveland Clinic article that a board member provided me after one of our far apart in the issue, as you may think, and the cause for concern may be the product of semantics rather than actual content found in the textbook. This is some of the information I hope to share if given the opportunity to meet, and I'm also more than happy to share it through email because I know you're all very busy people. Additionally, I was hoping to provide you with an opportunity to submit your own questions or even arrange a Google Meet with a content specialist to provide any additional clarification or answer any questions that you may have if that's helpful. Other items I feel the board needs to consider are the positive things about the book. Before doing so, I'd like to describe the type of students that enroll in this elective class. First, they're among the highest achieving students we have at BHS, and they traditionally have stacked up very well against other high-performing students across the state and country. That's something we've always been proud of in our district. In order for these students to reach their fullest potential, they need the resources to appropriately challenge them. That's where the Campbell's textbook comes into play. I've listed 6 items that in particular I kind of want to highlight, and these are all things that I just kind of considered and were in the forefront of my mind in my textbook selection process. Out of all the AP Bio textbooks I reviewed, it's the most challenging of all the books, and it's the most detailed when it comes to the content. This is something that our students not only can handle, but they crave. By choosing a less rigorous textbook, I feel like I'm lowering expectations that would certainly impact how much students learn. I also think it could directly impact AP scores, therefore their ability to earn college credit, and just overall college readiness. Second thing, and this is probably what I'm most impressed with the textbook selection that I made, is its ability to break down very difficult, complex, and hard to understand concepts into something that's manageable for students. The pictures, graphs, diagrams, and all other components of the book outshine all other textbooks, and I can't overemphasize how important this is. There's too much volume for me to cover all of the content within the classroom in the given amount of time that I have. And so a lot of the learning is done independently. And the only way that that can take place is if they have a textbook that's detailed enough for them to do that at home. I try to take a look at my notes, and I think I'd probably need at least an extra 3 weeks of schooling to fill in those gaps with the other textbook options that I explored, and I just don't think that that's manageable. The alignment of the textbook is the closest in terms of all the additional resources, rigor of the AP exam, description, and just a couple other things. We've used this textbook for 15 years. We've had 2 previous editions. We haven't had any issues. I hope that me speaking tonight isn't upsetting or has come across disrespectful. My number 1 goal as an educator is to provide the best possible education, and I think that this textbook is going to get us there. I really, really hope you'll reconsider and meet with ideas since my 5 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Up next, Mr. Logan Ashley. Welcome, thanks for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. Here for 2 reasons. As you know, my name is Logan Ashley. I live on West Franklin Street, and I am the chairman of the Sugar Maple Festival. First reason I was here, I wanted to say thank you for your commitment and your assistance with the festival. Let you know, this year so far, we've given out $1,850 to our Sweetheart Scholarships, which is the females, the high school, middle school who we interview and show that they are leaders in our future. Another $500 went to Greene County Career Center to students who go there as scholarships for being outstanding students. I'll be back on the 17th. I'm giving away $1,500 to 3 high-achieving students here at Bellbrook High School. I'm giving away $500 to our ROTC program, and another $1,000 is going to go to Mr. Anderson over at BCI for his Veterans Day breakfast. So we're just very proud that we can do that, very proud that the board and the schools assist us in the things we need to be able to give those to our students. So thank you. Definitely appreciate it. Personal note, Ms. Norton, thank you for, I know everyone's confused about what's going on with our verbiage, but taking the initiative and talking to the GSA is just awesome. Going over there and showing that leadership, that's amazing to me. So thank you for that. Personal note for myself, some of you know I am a completely disabled veteran. I wear a prosthetic most days. Handicap parking at BCI. We have it, but guess what we can't use? In the morning, going to BCI, can't park there because we have our student drop off. Going there in the afternoon, can't use it, student drop off and pickup. If I want to go there to use handicap parking, I have to be there at probably 07:30. I have to find the time because of our preschool and our BCI parking. So if that could be, just put your bug in here for next year, if you could please look into that, maybe moving it somewhere else. I know we're trying to adjust the transportation for next year at BCI, but that would definitely be appreciated. So having to walk from the high school area. So, but yeah, thank you again. Thank you for everything you do, especially in assisting with the festival. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next is Erica Glover. Sorry, is it Erica?
Ella.
Ella, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I have some papers. I have papers. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Hello, my name is Ella Glover. I live on 2056 Regent Park Drive. I'm sure many of you might recognize me from a number of places, even if you don't realize it. I spoke at the last meeting, I've made several news appearances, and I've also made a petition. I have handed the current numbers of that petition to you. I started this petition in response to the board decision at the end of the last meeting. My petition has since reached over 1,500 signatures. This decision to remove the parenthetical phrase sexual orientation and gender identity from our school policy has ignited a fire within me, a fire fueled by passion, compassion, and a fierce determination to fight for what is right. My support for this petition is not just an abstract concept. It is a reflection of the lives, struggles, and hopes of countless individuals within our school community. It is a cry for justice, acceptance, and understanding. The removal of those words, seemingly small to some, sent shockwaves of hurt and disappointment through the hearts of our LGBT students, staff, and families. It has left them feeling invisible, invalidated, and silenced. Inclusive policies are not mere tokens of progress. They are lifelines for the vulnerable, beacons of hope in a world that often seeks to marginalize and exclude. They are the threads that weave together the tapestry of our school community, creating a fabric of unity, acceptance, and love. By stripping away those words, we tear at the very fabric that holds us together, leaving frayed edges and broken bonds. I implore each of you and every one of you to dig deep within your hearts and find empathy and compassion needed to understand the significance of our plea. LGBTQ youth face challenges that many of us may never comprehend. They endure a daily battle for acceptance and self-worth, navigating a world that too often denies them the basic rights and dignity afforded to others. Today, I call upon the collective strength and goodness within each of you to stand beside us in this fight for justice and equality. Let us be the change we wish to see, the voices of reason in a world that often seems deaf to the cries of the marginalized. Today, we can rewrite the narrative of our school community, forging a future where love, acceptance, and understanding reign supreme. I extend my deepest gratitude to those who have supported this petition, who have lent their voices, and who have shown unwavering solidarity in the face of adversity. Your compassion and dedication are beacons of hope that illuminate the path toward a brighter and more inclusive future. I also respect and applaud the board's motion to add additional amendments to policy 5517.1. The proposed amendment is a step in the right direction. My message to you, think about the numbers. All these people wish to see you change. It is your turn now to do your job. You are elected to represent the majority. I have brought you the signatures of people amounting over 300 times those who sit on your board who disagree with what you had decided. It doesn't really sound like you were voting for the majority. The people care. The numbers reflect it. I look forward to working towards a better tomorrow together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mike, could you provide us a copy of the actual petition language, either via email, via email? Thank you.
Next, I apologize, I'm struggling with handwriting. Last name is Park. Is it Christie?
Sarita?
Sarita. Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
No problem. Everybody's doing that. So,
Welcome and thanks for being here. You have 5 minutes.
I'm the Reverend Sarita Park. I am an Episcopal priest currently serving as the interim rector at St. Mark's in Riverside. I've been an advocate and a person who has ministered to and with the LGBT community for 30 years. I'm here because I'm a brand new member of this community, and I wanted to just say that it's incredibly difficult to hear through the general media of things that seem to be disturbing, and I wanted to be here tonight. And I thank you all for the explanations. It's very helpful. It's obvious to me that you care about students. You care about the buses they ride in. You care about the classrooms they're in. I just wanted to say that when someone is in the discernment of who they are, there are several places that they need support. One is at home. One is in the worship community they may be in. And the other one is at school. And if the people at home are not supportive, and if their worship community is not supportive, school is the last place they have to feel safe. So not just with this particular harassment bullying policy, I would ask you to in whatever policy you are considering, to remember the human dignity of every student, because they deserve that dignity and they need to
Second.
and Mrs. Anderson. Discussion, questions? Very good. Anything else?
No, I'll wait until after.
Mr. Lyman, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Price? Yes. Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
All right, before I have the principals announce the new staff here and introduce them, just again to reiterate that we have a high-quality candidate pool that we draw from. And so the candidates that we have who are now newly hired are cream of the crop. They're fantastic individuals and teachers and educators. And we go through a pretty rigorous process of selection process, interviews, and questions, and so forth to ensure that we have the best that anybody can get around here. So we extremely extend a warm welcome to them, and I will have the principals do introductions. Who wants to go first? Mr. Phelps, would you like to go first? Since I'm looking straight at you, sorry, you're my line of sight.
Well, I was gonna offer Mrs. Keaton to go
Okay.
first in case, so we could just go K-12, but anyway. Of course, as usual, I'm a little bit behind Mrs. Keaton. We're just now getting to final round interviews next week for teaching positions. But we were very fortunate to finish up the assistant principal final round interviews this week at Bellbrook Intermediate. So first, it's with a great deal of gratitude that I thank the board members, Dr. Kozan, the district cabinet members of the district administration, and of course, Mrs. Keaton for her advocacy as well, that the recognition finally came down the pipe that 8 to 12-year-olds and the needs of Bell Creek just aren't quite what elementary school used to be, and with our growing enrollment. Despite a lot of extra hours, we need some extra support in order to really soar to our highest heights and realize our fullest potential at Bell Creek Intermediate. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce to the entire community Mr. Zampline. Many people probably know him. This was a tough decision. Dr. Kozat and I had, I don't know, probably almost 50 applications to peruse. We had to get that down to a pool to take to the building team. There was representation there by all of our different groups and departments. And that was another tough decision. He asked us to pick 2 and we could only get down to 3. So it was a very talented pool of people, but Mr. Klein definitely rose to the top as our first ever assistant principal of Bell Creek Intermediate, and I'm very confident that his strengths and experience are going to complement the work that we're doing and really support the teachers and staff, students, and me to keep going in that forward momentum of continuous improvement. And it's really great to have him. Besides being a community member and his boys, sons all are being at our school. His wife Emily teaches here at the middle school, and we have some similar roots. So he is more than 2 decades into his career, and that's probably the time we first met. When I was a junior, going into my junior year at Myersburg High School, he was teaching at the middle school, summer school language arts, I think. And there was a young lady who was from Mexico who could not speak English, and my love for Spanish had already begun, and I needed some National Honor Society points, or service hours, and so I did a little translating there, and that's where we first met. So it was really fun to get reappointed a couple of years ago as the principal at his son's school. So very happy to welcome him aboard, and I know that we're going to do great things working together. So thank you very much for that support, and welcome to Mr.
That's what I thought, okay. See, Mr. Phelps, that's why I skipped over Mrs. Keaton, because she didn't have anybody, so. All right, see, that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm before I skip over you. Ms. Hill.
Okay.
All right, I have 3 tonight that I'm super excited to present. So I want to start with, oh, there it is. Okay, you're sitting there. This is Cameron Halls, and he is going to be our new part-time band instructor. And we are so excited to officially bring him on board, but he has been working with our band for several years now. Mrs. Solomon, Mr. Solomon, Mrs. Seiler, Mrs. Blankenship have worked with him, speak very, very highly of him. He has done amazing things with our whole band, but specifically with our drum line. That is his expertise. So I'm very excited because now all of our band teachers and Miss Blankenship with choir are all going to be leading their kind of top instrument that they know and they love. And so this is just an exciting addition to our band program. So we're very excited to have you. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
This is Julie Steiner. She is going to be joining us in 8th grade math part-time as well. She comes to us with many years of experience teaching both at Fairborn as well as Toll's Career Center. And we are so excited for her to join our team, and she is going to be teaching Math 8 and then also our 8th graders that are in geometry, which she's taught before, and she also brings experience of actually being an IS as well. So we're really excited for her to join our team. And then lastly, this is Mr. Nick Baker. He is going to be joining us in 8th grade ELA. This is a little bit of a full circle for me because both him and his fiance were my students at Oakwoods just a couple years ago. So I'm very excited for him to join our team. He has spent the last semester with us learning under Mrs. Mothersole as well as Mrs. Marsh. And they both highly recommended him, and he brings with him a wealth of knowledge, a deep connection with kids. It was the first time I've ever been getting ready for an interview and actually got recommendation emails from students that he currently has. So that speaks volumes about him and just his love for students and the great things that all 3 are going to be bringing to us at Bellbrook Middle School. So thank you.
He's from Oakwood. Is he going to wear purple?
Yeah, I already got my shirt. Okay.
I've got some beer.
Approved.
Mr. Hanna.
I'd like to introduce Kristen Krumauer. She's not here today, but she is a resident, another teacher from Bellbrook Schools. We'll be joining Bellbrook High School, Fresh 1. Our Fresh program is growing, and it's a great opportunity to have come and teach part-time and to be able to get someone with such great experience to help grow our program. So we're very excited to have her with us.
Again, congratulations and welcome to our new staff. All right, moving on to E, out-of-state travel. Recommend approval of out-of-state travel for the following: Betsy Gann, Donnie Phelps, and Dinah Layfeld to NWA MAP Fusion Conference in Atlanta from June 27th to the 29th. They're presenting, so there's no cost for the conference registration. The hotel and flights are covered by the Title IV-A federal grants and no cost to the general fund. And then VHS marching bands to Band of America Grand National Championships in Indianapolis, Indiana, November 10th and 11th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Carpenter, Mrs. Dorn. Questions? Mr. Lyman, will you please call roll?
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Okay, that moves us on to item F, introduction earlier, but I will take a recommendation to approve the changes and revisions to board policy 5517.01 as you saw them presented on the screen.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Price and Mr. Carpenter. Discussion.
I already got to discuss a little bit, but I did promise presenter, he's not here anymore, that I would address his proposal that he brought up. So I don't know if he read it out loud. Remind me of his name.
I think it was Ben.
So he provided a recommendation, and can you pull up that policy? He provided a recommendation that would change the first paragraph rather than the second, and further language that specified race, ethnicity, national origin, religious identity, gender identity, or expression, sexual orientation, or disability. And I would just like to share that we did talk about, and this is very similar to some of the proposed language that the GSA leadership brought into the conversation, that were lists like this, that they had not copied, but provided or researched from other districts all over the country. They brought in some samples of language that they liked. And we talked through a lot of it, and we kind of came to the conclusion that whenever you try to make a list like this and try to include everybody, you end up excluding someone, like even the list that he provided, like, doesn't say sex. So like, is that something that, and you could probably list a few more. So definitely something that we considered when we were collaborating, but opted to go with the specific language regarding sexual orientation and gender identity, because that was what was removed from the other policy, but to also add the and other groups language to make sure that it truly was inclusive of all other groups. Because we kind of felt like trying to do a list like this was an effort in futility, but truly appreciate and recognize the intent. And I hope the proposed language for membership in any other population or group has captured that intent. So I'll share that.
I would concur that I think the language you provided here meets the intention of what we talked about last time. Meets the summarized collaboration that we heard from folks, and while I really appreciated Ben's courtesy and civility and in presenting, I would concur that when you start to create a list, it becomes inadvertently excluding something.
All right, I kind of put my thoughts down as well. I could support a list easier than I can support what is currently written, and for the following reasons. So before I read my statement, I wanted to preface it with appreciation for the process that happened from our last meeting and allowing all stakeholders to speak, as well as Mrs. Dorn's follow-up with the GSA. So I really appreciate all of that. I believe I understand the intentions behind the proposed change, but I do not believe they will be effective, nor are they inclusive in any way. I'm extremely concerned about the proposed language. I have concerns about supporting language that makes any group a target or gives impressions that students' bullying experience is any less important or valid than any specifically group that is mentioned. Any policy that calls out or attempts to define all or for any reason, I believe, in my opinion, is discriminatory, especially to those who find themselves bullied or harassed for reasons beyond sexual orientation or gender identity. To only name sexual orientation and gender identity specifically sends the message to all the students who are bullied for other reasons that their bullying is not as horrific as those specifically mentioned. The large population of students who would fit into the or membership in any other population or group section may feel that they were not valued enough or their experience is not worthy of being recognized. Naming specific groups has a detrimental effect on the entire student population. My personal preference is for us to say all. The most inclusive term we could possibly use is all students, to make all students feel protected. would be any student for any reason. I believe Mr. Carrera said it best at our last meeting, that we need to send a message that all students are welcome here. Our goal for our entire student population, in my opinion, needs to be unity. Special call-outs for any group do not get us any closer to the goal of focusing less on our differences and more on what we have in common. Every student in our district, no matter what, deserves to be treated with kindness because they're human beings. Basic human decency is missing in all walks of life, as we have seen in our own community. I think our time and efforts would be much more better spent making sure our harassment and bullying policy is actually followed. Yes, there are processes in place to handle situations, but based on the feedback from the families in our district, we're failing in this area. According to our bullying reports from first semester, there were 2 incidents of bullying at Stephen Bell, 6 incidents at BCI, 7 at BMS, and 1 incident at the high school. Just based on the stories from 2 weeks ago and what a vast majority of our district families are saying, we have a severe bullying problem, and I'm confident that we're not unique in that, but I do believe that our numbers are being vastly underreported. If we truly want to protect our LGBTQIA+ population, then we need to do better than divisive words in a policy. We as a board need to send a strong message that we expect a zero tolerance policy to actually mean zero tolerance. The words we removed 2 weeks ago were clearly not shielding any students from being bullied. Words in a policy can neither protect students nor can they force students to be kind. For this, we will need to partner with parents in order to educate students on what exactly bullying is and how important it is to be kind to all. We also need to encourage students to stand up and speak up when they hear or see a student being bullied. We need to reinforce the message that every student in our care is valued for who they are, worthy of equal protection. I would really like everyone to reconsider the proposed language, that it is divisive, and be more in favor of a more inclusive terms, such as the following: harassment, intimidation, or bullying toward any student for any reason or by anyone is prohibited, or to consider expanding the membership group in any listing. And I respect that we can't hit everybody, but I do understand, I think everybody can fit into the categories that Ben presented to us, and I think he really knocked it out of the park.
From my perspective, appreciate comments all around the table here. We've heard. I am personally very much in favor of us moving forward tonight and approving this policy for a couple reasons. One, obviously, there is a perception, I would actually call it a misperception, that we are removing protection from a certain category of students in our district, LGBTQ plus specifically. And we are far from that. That's, it's monstrous to think that we would open up any of our children to any type of harassment. That said, I understand the apparent bad messaging or imagery behind removing language that specifically calls out this category of students. So I really want to see this go forward tonight. Anybody pays attention, you'll see we periodically review our policies. None of them are done forever. And to me, it's critically important for us as a board to send a message, because we specifically, in language, took out those categories because they do not align with current law as written. And so that was removed for that reason. Although, like you said, this is our in-house policy. We have direct control over this. I think it's very important that we respond to what we heard at the last meeting, that we approve this. And as well, we have some students that are graduating next Saturday. I don't want them to walk out of this school with a figurative kick in the butt. I don't want that to happen. I want them to leave satisfied to some degree that they were able to influence and have a voice, civic contribution, and the board listened, and where we could have the most effect in our local in-house policy, that we heard and responded to that. All that said, again, policies are never in concrete. We can continue to look at this, address Ben's recommendations were awesome. Unfortunately, as has been said here, we may miss a group. But maybe that's where the parenthetical, well, in parentheses right now, but where we say in any group, we would cover that. But we could look at this over the summer into the fall or whatever, make it more inclusive with specific groups that are called out and has been suggested. But I seriously think we need to honor those, especially that respectfully express their positions over the last couple weeks. Basically, as we approve this, the students that are graduating that especially have a passion about this will feel like they were heard and that they acted on it. Again, we can come back and visit this later. So I very much want to see this passed tonight. So that's my perspective.
And I'll just take this opportunity to clearly reiterate that at the last meeting, no protections were removed. Right? It's right up there on the screen that it protects all students. 5517.01, as it has been, as it is today, protects all students. Harassment, intimidation, or bullying toward a student not to be tolerated by anyone for any reason. So with that, obviously every individual deserves to be welcomed and treated with empathy and respect, compassion and love. I believe that this helps us achieve that end. I really applaud the collaboration that came together. Thank you, Mrs. Dorn, for taking the time and the effort. I thank the GSA students and the administrators that were there. I think that if we can provide some reassurances that when we say all students, we mean all students, I support that. You know, the question keeps being asked, and I understand to some degree, people keep asking why at the last meeting, why the change? I feel like it's been said a few times, but I'm happy to share my perspective yet again, is that policy that we discussed last meeting merely summarizes, reflects the current landscape of the law as it sits now. So as a board member, as a member of a governing body, you know, some folks may not agree with this, I understand, but I feel the importance and the weight of ensuring that policies align as closely as possible with law. You may be able to imagine there are risks associated if policies fall outside of the law. That may not be a very exciting answer, but that's the why. Making sure that our policies align as closely as possible with the current legal landscape. With that being said, we have these protections right here for all students, and I support them.
I appreciate your perspective, Heidi. There's a couple things I do want to respond to, though. I think that to say that there is a bullying problem, I don't know that any of us sitting here can say that definitively. To say that there is bullying in our schools and in every school and in every workplace, not every workplace, but in a lot of workplaces, in towns, bullying exists, doesn't go away when we leave school, but I'm quite certain that it exists in every school in our country. But you said something about needing to adhere to our policies, and we need to focus on that. And I don't know if you were implying that our students need to adhere to our policy, or the bullies need to adhere to our policy, or were you implying that our teachers and administrators are not enforcing our policies? Because I think an unfortunate outcome of our last meeting was that there was an implication that our teachers and our administrators are not enforcing that policy, and that they are sweeping things under the rug or ignoring or not disciplining these things when they happen. And of course, just like crime, our police officers can't catch every criminal, and our administrators can't catch every bully or kid who does something mean or bad. But I am very confident that when they can, and when they can prove it, that they do. And so I felt like some of our staff was caught in the crossfire last week with a lot of people who were angry with us. I want to publicly say that I have 100% confidence that when our teachers and administrators, staff members find out or something is reported to them, that they are doing everything that they can to handle that situation. Now, to the extent that our students need to adhere to our policies, and they also don't read our policies, but to that, yes, any effort we can make to reduce bullying, to reduce kids treating one another poorly, sure. To classify that as that we have a major problem and we are any worse than anywhere else, or that we're not even potentially in a better position than other places, I don't think that we can sit here and say that based on anecdotes that we hear one side of any given story.
Any additional comments?
I believe I did clarify that this problem is not unique to us. I think our students don't follow the policy because they don't know the proper channels, so things are not always reported. I always love what Mr. Eckley says. If we are aware of the problem, 100% is dealt with. But I do, when I went and looked at our bullying numbers, I said, there's a discrepancy here based on the number of students that showed up and the number of parents and people we hear from. There's a discrepancy in the reported numbers versus the stories that we're hearing, and so there has to be some sort of discrepancy somewhere. But it is not unique to Bellbrook. But if we also don't say, hey, this is a problem, when a lot of people that spoke last week said I was bullied. So, I mean, if we don't acknowledge it, then I think we don't do anybody a service.
I just want to add that, again, the situations that we are aware of, we deal with, and deal with them effectively. And I also would want to go one step further, is that our building principals, our teachers create an environment that it is very clear that things are not acceptable. Being mean to another kid is not acceptable. And I think there's administrators and teachers and staff, that is the pervasive, not only vibe, but verbal and expectations that our students are nice to each other and treat each other pleasantly. Is there situations where they're not? Of course, because they're kids. However, I would, if there's a situation that comes up that kids aren't being nice with, and we're aware of them, and we tell kids they need to let us know, we deal with the situation.
I'll ask the board, are we ready to call the roll? Okay. Mr. Lyman, will you please call the roll on changes and revisions as proposed to board policy 5517.01?
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson.
No.
Okay, motion passes. Up next, agenda item letter G, not a number G, letter G, items of information discussion. Dr. Kozak?
Thank you. VHS class of 2023, graduation on Saturday, May 20th. That's quickly approaching here at 1 p.m. And again, it obviously is at the stadium outside, so we are crossing our fingers for a third year of good weather. And then the rain date is the next day there. So again, if you're involved in that graduation, just keeping a close ear to the ground with Mr. Han, and he'll continue to update people if there's a change in that itinerary. And then also, Green County Career Center Senior Recognition Ceremony on the 23rd at 7 p.m. It's always an exciting time that I'm over there also representing the school district, recognizing all of those students that are from our district and from other districts that have just done a fantastic job, and Career Center does a fantastic job of partnering with us and creating an environment over there where those kids come out with some great skills and so forth. So they're doing a bang-up job over there.
Is that Career Center ceremony open to the public? Yes. Is that fantastic?
Yeah, is that right, Dave?
All right. Hopefully we can all make it.
I would like to just get something on our radar. I know I had mentioned this to Dr. Kozad. I would like to hear from the Stephen Bell BLT regarding their kindergarten program. I know it's better that we all get information rather than a single person. So I know they have some pretty big concerns. Mr. Carrera spoke about it. I did meet with some of them, and I think that they have some valid concerns, and I would love to hear more about their ideas. If we could get that on that radar, maybe September-ish, whenever, I would love to hear more.
Thank you. Just I had a couple of really quick things here. One safety report, I couldn't give it last Thursday because we were meeting the next morning. I think we had a school board meeting until like midnight or something like that. So really can't go into much detail because it involves our school safety plan, but a couple of things I can throw out there. One, I brought up the bus issue, which you heard briefed here or presented here this evening. Also, it looks like the SROs, the training or the hiring for the SROs is on track. Once we currently have authorized the boards as far as teaming with the township and the city, so they're moving forward with the hiring process for that. It looks like there's a optimistic view that we can add an additional SRO based upon the passing of the police and fire levy last week, but that's TBD. That's not by any means finalized. That would then give us 3 SROs full time across the district if we're able to again, for the township to come through, and if we can look at our financing as far as being able to afford that. 2 other really quick things here. I would, Mr. Wyman, I appreciate that you did what I asked some time ago about putting the definitions of the 5-year plan there for the benefit of the community. I'd like to take a little bit further with the information we provide to the district. I would like for anything that's not private information, protected information within the board packets, I would really like to see the entirety of that available to the community leading up to our meetings. We can talk more about that in detail later, but again, to be transparent with the community, and that would include policy changes as well. So that doesn't have to come about through a public records request, but any policy changes that we are considering, that would be a part of the board packet that the community would be able to view. I know some things are not ready, like the minutes, but we still have to come back and discuss whether the minutes from the previous meeting are accepted or not. And certainly any type of applications for employment, those can't be in there. But as far as like a lot of your charts with the pie charts for expenditures, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've still yet made those available, or have we? Some of them?
On the website.
They are.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything though that is not? Maybe you cover it all. Obviously, I get it when I come to the meeting, so I'm not perusing the website. But I guess I'm confident saying we're not doing that with policy changes. Hence the criticism at the last meeting that we weren't as transparent as people would like. I see no harm, no foul with us making proposed policy changes just available for the communities without having to make
It's super easy to do in a Google Doc. Just post the link and everybody has access to it.
We can follow up on that next time. I just want to throw that idea out there.
Yeah, maybe on that, can I just say, maybe folks can give it some thought, maybe administration can come with a proposal rather than us trying to figure out exactly, specifically what maybe they can come up with a proposal. I mean, just in case anybody's curious, we've been following the same procedure for a number of years. I'm not sure how long, right?
Probably 20, 30 years.
Probably 20, 30 years. We've been following the same procedure that we've always followed. That's what we followed again. However, certainly we can pivot, we can evolve. If that's something that the board wants to do. I just wanted to make that clear that it's been this way for a long time, but times change. So.
Well, like YouTube, right? We used to board meetings.
We're not required to do it on YouTube. We do it for the convenience of folks who want to stay informed.
It's a positive takeaway from COVID, right? So we're doing it before COVID. So.
Well, I can't. I was recording them a long time ago.
But and yeah, it's just a suggestion on one person on the board, but I would like as a minimum with our packets that we get, I'd like to see the policies out there from communities.
Not to belabor, but sorry to go back to your safety committee. Have you received, now that we've gone through some time, have you received any anecdotal feedback from the crossing guard or the police officer out there that the new systems installed in front of the middle school, have they been effective?
I sent an email to crossing guard. Last week, she sent me the details of how many people have been crossing. I sent an email back to her asking, hey, have you seen an improvement over last year? I think I might have missed it. I'm not sure I got a reply back from her. I think maybe I not got a reply.
Not a issue, just a
I
curiosity.
just know the other day for me, I was actually coming eastbound in the morning after I was picking up donuts from Bill's, I think it was, for the teachers. And I went, that's really eye-catching, you know, that light flashing, and I saw people slowing down and showing their speed. I think it's been, we'll never
I
know, right?
suspect so too.
But I think
But I
there's
also-
still people blast right on through.
Well, there's still people that run past it.
School
Bus,
buses.
so, but. Thanks.
Any other items of discussion? Okay, at this time, I would like to make a motion that we meet in executive session for the purpose of reviewing details relative to the security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body per revised code 121.22 G6.
Second.
Mrs. Dorn seconds. I try to mention it when I think of it, when we're in executive session, for those in case you're wondering. We cannot, we do not, we never take any vote while we're in there. We take no action while we're in there. All action must happen and does happen in open session. Mr. Lyman, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We're in executive session at 9:16. Caregiver. All right, we are out of executive session at 9:48 p.m. At this time, I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of a resolution to appoint certain individuals as members of the district's active shooter response team and authorizing those individuals to have access to and possess a deadly weapon or ordinance in a school safety zone.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, cool. So very good. Motion by Mr. Price, seconded by Mrs. Anderson. I would like to read that addendum B that's referenced here in the agenda now. It's a little long, bear with me, I'm out of water. The title is Resolution Appointing Certain Individuals as Members of the District's Active Shooter Response Team and authorizing those individuals to have access to and possess a deadly weapon or ordinance in a school safety zone. Whereas the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Local School District Board of Education believes that its first priority is to ensure the safety of the district's students and staff. Whereas the Board of Education has taken a number of steps to ensure that it is providing a safe and proper learning environment for its students and a safe and proper workplace for its staff. Whereas pursuant to House Bill 99 of the 134th General Assembly and Revised Code 2923.122 D1D, the Ohio General Assembly has empowered local boards of education to authorize certain individuals to convey or otherwise possess a deadly weapon or dangerous ordinance into a school safety zone if that person possesses written authorization. Whereas at its September 8th, 2022 meeting, the Board of Education passed a resolution creating the district's active shooter response team and began the process of creating a program to allow certain staff members to convey into or otherwise access and possess weapons in a school safety zone that are properly trained to protect the district's students and staff. Whereas since the fall of 2022, the district's Armed Shooter Response Team Implementation Committee has met to create a safe, thorough process for the selection of members of the district's Armed Shooter Response Team and a policy that governs the actions of the district's Armed Shooter Response Team. Whereas certain individuals have expressed interest in serving on the district's Armed Shooter Response Team. Whereas the district's Armed Shooter Response Team Implementation Committee has confirmed or is in the process of confirming that certain individuals have met all requirements to serve as a member of the district's Armed Shooter Response Team. And whereas the Board of Education desires to authorize certain staff members to convey into or otherwise access and possess a deadly weapon or dangerous ordinance in a school safety zone in an effort to further provide for the safety of the district's students and staff. Now therefore be it resolved by the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Local School District Board of Education, Section 1. The following individuals have satisfied or are in the process of completing all statutory and board policy requirements and are hereby authorized to convey or otherwise access and possess a deadly weapon or dangerous ordinance in a school safety zone. For the individuals that are currently in the process of completing the requirements, the board president and superintendent shall ensure that the individual completes all requirements required by Ohio law and board policy prior to receiving the written authorization described in Section 2 below. Section 2. The board president and the superintendent shall provide written authorization to the individuals authorized above to convey or otherwise access and possess a deadly weapon or dangerous ordinance in a school safety zone. Section 3, the superintendent shall ensure that the individuals authorized above shall comply with all subsequent statutory and board policy requirements, including but not limited to the annual requalification and training and an annual criminal records check in order to maintain their ability to convey or possess a deadly weapon in a school safety zone. Section 4, the board president and the superintendent shall ensure that the public has been notified by the means typically used to relay communications of the board's decision to authorize one or more persons to convey or possess a deadly weapon in a school safety zone. Section 5, the board president and the superintendent shall ensure that, consistent with Revised Code 5502.703D, a list of the qualified personnel authorized to convey deadly weapons or dangerous ordinances into the district school safety zone to the Ohio School Safety and Crisis Center. Section 6, this resolution shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Discussion. I would just like to commend the implementation committee for all of the hard work that's been done. And I would very much like to commend and thank all of the individuals that showed interest and volunteered for this program. We've discussed at length the need for, watch previous board meetings, the need for a balanced, comprehensive safety plan. And sincere thank you to all the interest in the individuals that are willing to volunteer in that capacity.
I think the two, well, I guess three of you for serving on that committee. Trust that you guys are doing a good job.
I'm grateful to the community, to the administration, to the fellow board members here. We have done our best to have a multi-layered level of protection for our children. It may be largely unprecedented throughout the state. We've invested substantially in camera systems with advanced capabilities. We have, made sure our staff is better trained and we have the vindicator systems and the valid, whatever it's called, where, it's much more challenging for someone to get into school these days, at least without force. And then with the upcoming, approval of the SROs that we'll see in place in the fall, and further, an unknown number of teachers and our staff that are behind the scenes that a would-be evildoer has to consider. So, God forbid anything should ever happen, but if it does, I know I've done my best in every regard to protect our students. And I'm really satisfied with, again, the corporate effort, the community enabling us financially, again, to go back to the camera system and the other vindicator systems for access to our buildings. And I'm just really grateful, and to our community at Bellbrook City, as well as the township, for their willingness to stand up and take us from a half-time SRO to essentially at least 2 full-time. And it seems like it's promising that we're going to have 3. And so I think, we've done our due diligence, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Dr. Kozak, will you please call the roll?
Yep. Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. I will take a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Dorn and Mrs. Anderson. Dr. Kozak, please call the roll.
Yep. Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes. We are adjourned at 9:56 p.m.